We're now in the thick of February, and with that, this means that the BattleBots Destruct-A-THON series of live events have officially kicked off, and today we are going to be talking all about the historic inaugural first week of the BattleBots Destruct-A-THON and 4 fight card events which happened during this first week. We're talking all about robots such as Witch Doctor, Chopper, Tazbot, Overkill, Hypershock, Diablo, among other machines, along with details of the event, the new hosts, the fan experience, people that were in attendance. We're going to be talking about all these details about the very first week of BattleBots Destruct-A-THON right here, right now at the Combot Collective, so stay tuned.
Oh my God! Wow! This is the biggest flame we've ever seen!
Has preserved enough energy to get in the flip on Carbine. We're gonna go all the way. Oh my God! That's gonna hurt! Grab the milk, Jenny!
Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello everybody, and welcome to yet another news episode here at the Combot Collective, bringing everything you want to know from the world of robot combat, from the heavyweight class to the flyweight class, from BattleBots to the live circuit. I'm your host, as always, Sterling Brown, aka Corey 300th, former writer at Third Law Sports and current BattleBots subreddit moderator. And I guess I should preface this video with, I don't know what's going on. It feels like there's someone doing construction literally directly behind me. I don't know what's up, but we're going to try to do this video anyway. We got some BattleBots news for you all today, but nothing that has to do with the regular season, of course, World Championship 7, which is happening right now. But right now, we are talking about, the BattleBots Destruct-A-THON here, which, like I said at the top of the video, on February 3rd, had its first ever event. So we're going to be running down all the news, all the details on these events within the first week here in a second. But first, as always, the Combot Collective is sponsored by our friends at robotsruinmylife.com. They are the merchandise provider for numerous BattleBots competitors, such as Starchild, who we're going to be seeing later this week. Shredded Bro, the very hot topic, Ripperoni. They just beat Endgame. That is super exciting. And of course, also they take care of merchandise for NHRL live event competitors such as Wake and Bake, Blackbird, Shredded Bro, and the rest of the Team Shredded crew over there. They do, t-shirts, buttons, stickers, prints, all sorts of things which have the Robot Combat logos on it, along with their own robotsruinmylife.com merchandise, so definitely be sure to check them out. But now let's get to this video and talk about some Destruct-A-THON news and talk about these robots. On February 3rd, the first ever BattleBots Destruct-A-THON event took place, a 5-event fight card which will be repeated on the 4th and the 5th, with a new fight card we know partially happening on the 7th. Here at the Combot Collective today, we're here to talk all about this first week of the Destruct-A-THON, these first 4 fight cards, and the details fans from the King of Draft Discord and BattleBots subreddit, like I mentioned, were able to share about this overall experience. So let's kick it off with the basics, with what we've learned from every show so far, what seems to be the standard. It appears to be a 5-event fight card hosted by Steve Judkins, and here's an exciting one, Comedy Central Arrow legend Bill Dwyer, who's returning to the commentary desk, calling 4 fights and 1 demo session. Plus, there's also a driver meetup happening before the show and a STEM speech from BattleBots co-founders after the show, leading to overall an 80-minute event in total. And speaking of this driver meetup, with this being the debut of all these brand new super heavyweight Destruct-A-THON builds, we're seeing a lot of their drivers, competitors like Ginsu's Hal Rucker, Diablo's Zach Bieber, Tazbot's Donald Hudson, Malice's Bunny Soriol, and of course Team Scorpius and Jeff Waters also hanging along there, among other competitors, with a lot of these guys driving their own robot while in attendance. But robots with no drivers present had the aforementioned actor Phobateers with bold costumes standing on stage, while Bradley Hanstad from Team Overboard and BattleBots co-founder Trey Roski did all the actual substitute driving for these robots. Some other positive findings from fans in terms of the event experience starts here with the entry room and concourse, as things seem to be mostly the same for the usual BattleBots event, with a bar and merchandise area present. Another plus here is that apparently all areas from general admission to VIP to even those cool platinum seating areas all provide a pretty good view of the action from what I've heard. Fans are also excited and pleased to get to see a lot of the BattleBots crew and competitors here, but they won't be there all the time, so I do worry about that. And another glaring issue is that fans also have reported that attendance has not been the best for all of these events. Of course, some of these events are weekdays, and I do believe some of these events also are happening during the afternoon, so that might be a case for some of the lower attended events, but I really do hope these events don't dwindle in popularity so soon. On the flip side though, a lot of these events have also seemed to be attended pretty well from what I've heard. It seems like promotion may have not been the best so far. This could be a dilemma in the future, but I suppose we're just going to have to see these events, watch how it plays out during the next couple of months from this February to May span of the BattleBots Destruct-A-Thon. But now let's get to some of the good stuff here and talk about these BattleBots Destruct-A-Thon competitors and how they have fared during these first week and 4 fight cards on regular duty. The first 2 main event robots for these inaugural 3 shows are fittingly enough 2 of the sport's modern faces, Witch Doctor and Hypershock, who in that span reenacted their stellar Golden Bolt fight from 2021. The Glately family were sadly not present during the week, but Gary Negan from Team Hypershock was, and presumably drove the spinner during these main event fights. Both Hypershock and Witch Doctor's Destruct-A-Thon renditions took a similar design, with hopes to survive the long haul which these events are going to provide, with both of these robots going for a more simplified, bulkier, and robust take on their chassis, with some decently chunkier wheels added as well. But talking combat here, reportedly we know that these 2 robots met at least 3 times inside the battle box during this span, with the inaugural Destruct-A-Thon show seeing Hypershock win on a crowd vote judge's decision after Hypershock focused heavily on those large wheels of Witch Doctor. And then literally the following day, at show 2, the tides would flip perfectly, with a main event seeing Witch Doctor win on a crowd vote judge's decision after Witch Doctor would focus heavily on the wheels of Hypershock. So with that, we know that both robots have one win under their belt versus the other, but as of right now, nothing is known about their show 3 main event meeting. That's all we have right now to report on Hypershock, but on the February 7th Destruct-A-Thon show, we'd see our first cycling of fight cards, and with that cycling came a new main event, Chopper versus Witch Doctor. Now we'll talk more about Chopper's performance later on in the video, but Witch Doctor would look excellent in the only known fight between these 2 robots so far, as Witch Doctor would rip a wheel off Chopper in seconds and then bully the axe spot for the rest of the fight, eventually taking a victory here. So, it looks like show business was starting off good enough for Witch Doctor and Hypershock, but sadly not so much for the 2020 runner-up Whiplash, who all around so far has been having a pretty tough year. The amazing Vasquez family has been all over the BattleBots venue, taking pictures of the event, showing fans online what the Destruct-A-Thon is all about, and perhaps most importantly, working on this brand new show-built version of Whiplash for its first series of fights against none other than the returning Diablo. This 300+ pound Whiplash uses the vertical spinner lifter attachment, and while it doesn't look as odd as say the new Hypershocker Witch Doctor, it's still a bit bulkier than its 250 pound counterpart and runs a slightly modified set of wheels, which also follow the trend of adding bulk to these machines. Whiplash in this first batch of matches, like I just mentioned, faced Diablo, and in these we know that Diablo has taken the win at least 2 of these 3 encounters, with Whiplash being the victim of the inaugural show's biggest moment when Diablo ripped Whiplash's left front plow off and right into the arena lights, shattering the lighting all over the arena, much to the pleasure of Bill Dwyer. It is so good to hear his voice again. But this fight would go to the judge's decision, and of course, with fan voting, you knew that they were going to choose Diablo after all of that. And then the following day, in what was reportedly a better quality match, Whiplash will be knocked out by Diablo after a vicious strike that sent the former finalist flying and landing directly onto its open lifting arm, breaking it in the process for a knockout. It's a tough first 2 fights, but definitely a learning experience for the ever-present Vasquez family. Hopefully they were able to figure a thing or 2 out about this new Whiplash, maybe even something for a 250 pound version. And speaking of Diablo, Zach Bieber was present for its Robots debut, and good for him as he presumably got to see those aforementioned performances against Whiplash. Certainly a great start for the career of Diablo, but it is worth noting that Diablo was suffering from some issues which left the returning machine with only half of its drive for most of that debut victory against Whiplash, the one where it took out the lights. But those issues were not present for the knockout win, fortunately, so I guess it did make some improvements from fight to fight. Another thing worth noting though, Diablo was running on wheels, not treads for these first few fights, but those treads did seem to be present for the February 7th Destruct-A-Thon event, where Diablo would face Overkill in a fight which went to the judges. And while on the topic of Overkill, the legendary machine would not return for the first bunch of fight cards, but would debut during the February 7th show in this aforementioned Diablo fight. Overkill, now with a generic new logo across the front wedge, really failed to do much in this fight, fighting more offense and spinning like a twack bot than it did the old-fashioned way. As just like Starchild, who we brought up a few videos ago, it takes some serious precision driving to be effective and score proper points with a machine like Overkill, something which may only be a job for Christian Karlberg, a master of this design, who of course was not present at this event. Overkill would end up spending more than half the fight flipped over, as Diablo would win yet another fight by judge's decision here. Another old school head which seems to have underwhelmed so far, mainly due to it being underweight, is the returning Tazbot, whose amazing and beautiful new design was revealed to the world recently on BattleBots.com. It is a phenomenal evolution of Tazbot, keeping the iconic 360-degree arm while making the robot a 6-wheel drive machine now, which can reportedly turn into a 4-wheel drive machine because apparently one of those ends of Tazbot is actually a mini-bot. Sadly though, as I mentioned, much like Overkill, this design so far has not aged nicely for modern robot combat, as reports from fans have said that Tazbot has had serious troubles lifting anything, and we certainly can see that from footage of it versus Kraken on the 7th, where Kraken bullied Tazbot for essentially the entire fight while on fire. Before this fight though were a trio of matches against Zachary Goff's Chopper, and in the first of these fights Chopper had no weapon but still managed to win the audience over purely with driving power and wedge game, something which Tazbot evidently does not have much of at all. And then in fight 2, Tazbot finally was able to get under Chopper some, but Chopper's axe would at last be working for this one, leaving Tazbot prone for numerous big time impacts. This fight would be the first time Taz's mini-bot would be seen, but the spectacle of Tazbot splitting would not be enough, as it would lose another judge's decision here, and then the third of their trio of fights again saw the Tazbot mini-bot, but apparently Tazbot lifted itself more than it did Chopper when trying to fight back. Like I mentioned, something it also did in that Kraken fight. There's a lot of kinks that really need to be worked out in this modern version of Tazbot. I know it's more of a nostalgia bot, it's not meant to win championships, but it is a bit of a bummer to see that this new Tazbot is so underweight. Can't really lift robots. Really do want to see how that mini-bot works though. Moving right along though, we have a few more modern robots to talk about here while we're on the topic of Kraken. It turns out the iconic Crusher version of Kraken isn't dead and retired after all, and will now be a Destruct-A-THON exclusive machine. Kraken in fact will be a member of this event's inaugural fight, challenging Malice in a series of battles between Discovery era favorites across the week. Unfortunately though for Kraken, it's still a hard world being a Crusher in this game it seems, as Malice would have its way in the first ever Destruct-A-THON fight by knocking out Kraken in just a few hits. And then, on the following day during Show 2, Kraken would lose again via knockout, but this time it would at least get the opportunity to exhibit some control, reportedly even taking Malice to the pulverizer on one occasion. Nothing is known about these two robots' third meeting, but as I mentioned, Kraken would finally find victory amidst the chaos and fire when it fought Tazbot for a judge's decision victory, and that is a statement I never thought I'd be saying a year ago. This sport's getting crazy really quick, guys. I love it. Now, compared to a lot of the modern robots at Destruct-A-THON with new changes, Kraken is mostly the same to its 250-pound counterpart, but on the flip side, Malice looks a bit more unique compared to these other machines. These new Malices use the bulky gray tires also seen on the new version of Witch Doctor, but this bigger Malice also now has a red top, which while only aesthetic does stand out versus the all-black versions of Malice we see on TV. It also appears that all these Malices will be using the rolling blackout weapon, and it also appears that, at least from the fights we've heard so far, this new version of Malice has quite a bit more weapon reliability. Our reports on the BattleBots subreddit never stated anything about Malice's weapon having any sort of concern, which means it probably made it out of these first 3 Kraken fights a-okay. This is certainly a good step for Team Malice. Now the real question going forward is if this change was only made recently for the Destruct-A-THON, or if Team Malice maybe have figured something out for the 2022 regular season's second half. And finally, if you're one of the 3 fans of ClashBots, hey, I'm one of them, I'm not judging, you may recognize Chopper, who despite being a BattleBots debutant here, the only one of our 12, Chopper did appear at ClashBots as a stock competitor to fill the field while going by the name Battle Axe. Something I didn't know, though, at the time of watching this series was that Battle Axe is built by none other than Caustic Creations, which in hindsight does make sense with how key Poison Arrow / Spicy Newt was during that event. This new version of Battle Axe, of course now named Chopper, still features the same axe design we saw in ClashBots, but now is also armed with the first ever firework weapon since Ultimo Destructo in 2018. That's right, in its February 7th main event against Witch Doctor, Chopper boasted none other than what was potentially, I'm guessing, the pyro we also see from the kill saws during the intro of episodes as a secondary weapon. Of course, this pyrotechnic explosion did not do much internally or cosmetically to Witch Doctor, but it absolutely put on a show nonetheless in a fight where Chopper sadly would not do much to the two-time finalist. Like I mentioned at the top of the video, whiffing on the axe and losing a wheel in the process. But of course, Chopper did manage a few victories against Tazbot during these first 3 shows, events which likely saw Chopper's builder Zachary Goff behind the sticks. That certainly had to help the robot out, you'd imagine. But there we go, that covers every robot which we know has fought during the first week of BattleBots Destruct-A-THON. Something's worth noting here though about our 3 fightless robots. Nightmare has appeared in just about every Destruct-A-THON show to our knowledge during week 1, but has yet to do anything other than clear out Caesar's Casino's old inventory. Nightmare exclusively did demo appearances during week 1 where it destroyed old slot machines, even getting part of one of the slot machines caught in the arena ceiling during show 2. Ginsu was also pictured inside the arena with a crowd of fans surrounding it, but it is unknown if the robot actually competed, though the brand new version by Hal Rucker looks beautiful. They nailed what they were going for on the CAD picture. And then finally, our 12th robot, Mammoth, did not compete at all. I'm sure by the time I'm getting this video out, it has, of course. It's now almost halfway through February. But right now, we do not believe it has competed during Destruct-A-THON Week 1. But there we go, that wraps up our event and robot performance details for the inaugural week, inaugural fight cards of BattleBots Destruct-A-THON. Of course, don't expect these updates to be a regular thing, being that these are 300-pound exhibitions and all that, but you know, the first week of this one certainly felt like a special one to capture. We're getting to see these legendary robots compete for the first time in 2 decades, new robots rekindling rivalries and reboot era machines meeting Comedy Central era machines. You know, hopefully down the line, we'll see BattleBots put videos out of these fights on YouTube, and maybe even down the line, we'll start seeing signed up robots like Pinch Point appear at these shows, but only time will tell. That's what we always say at the Combot Collective. But that's going to wrap it up for us here at TCC. I am your host, as always, and we have caught you up on everything that happened during BattleBots Destruct-A-THON Week 1. If you're interested in attending a BattleBots Destruct-A-THON event, and you want to see these big names like Tazbot, Witch Doctor, Whiplash, Overkill, Ginsu, who we have up here, I forgot to bring him down for this video, Diablo, you know, amazing other machines like Malice and Nightmare. You want to see these machines in action firsthand, get those Platinum VIP seats, check out the bar, buy some merch, see the BattleBots studio, and see the team in action. We're going to have a link in the description below for BattleBots Destruct-A-THON tickets, and also in the description below, of course, will be our sponsor, robotsruinmylife.com. Check them out, but we will also have our Instagram, our Facebook there. We post all our video and news updates on those pages. Our Discord is also in there. Please join our Discord. We are trying to grow that community. We have Robot Combat builders and fans in the server right now talking about Robot Combat every week. It's great to see. Check that out. And then, of course, right here on the YouTube, please give this video a like if you're enjoying what you're seeing here. Give us a comment. Give us some constructive criticism. Tell us what you think about BattleBots Destruct-A-THON, especially if you attended the show. Give us your thoughts so people that see this video can check them out and, you know, get a little bit more insight on this series of events. So that's going to wrap it up for us here at the Combot Collective. I'm your host, as always, Sterling Brown. We will be doing more BattleBots episode rundowns, but thank you so much for watching this episode. I'll see you guys next time for more Robot Combat news.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.